If you guys could turn in your student book to page 622, we're going to look at our target skill, strategy, and preview the topic before we read our anchor text this week. So our target skill is theme. As you read The World According to Humphrey, ask yourself what important lesson the main characters learn over the course of the story. This lesson is the story's theme. You can use a graphic organizer like the one below to record text evidence of the characters' thoughts and actions, as well as the ways in which they change and grow. This will help you to figure out the story's theme. By thinking carefully about and recording the characters' thoughts, words, and actions, it can help you to identify the theme, and it can just help you to keep track of how the theme develops through the story. So you have the characters' thoughts and actions and the way they change, and that all points to the theme of our story. The target strategy is to summarize. When you summarize a story, you briefly retell the main events in your own words. So as you read The World According to Humphrey, pause at the end of each page to briefly summarize what you've read to make sure that you understand it. When you summarize and retell the most important events in your own words, you should be adding your own ideas in there. You should not be doing that. But it is a very important skill to have to be able to summarize those important events that have happened. So I do encourage you to practice that, maybe not at the end of every page, but try to do it for sure every few pages and see maybe what you need to work on when it comes to summarizing. So let's preview the topic. It's media. Media such as television, magazines, and the internet are powerful communication tools, but is it possible to have too much of a good thing? Well, today many Americans spend hours each day watching television and playing and working on computers, kind of like us when we learn. How do we spend our time before media took up most of our attention? The World According to Humphrey is the story of a family that learns a valuable lesson about media. I want you to think about that. Is it possible for people to spend too much time watching TV or playing video games? Think about that question, why or why not? All right, turn the page. And here we have our anchor text. I did not realize Humphrey was going to be like a hamster. But here we have the information. You can read it if you'd like. You can meet the author and meet the illustrator. It's always kind of fun to see why they wrote these books and where they've also maybe drawn pictures in other books that we've read. So there's that graphic organizer to help us figure out the theme, the lesson or the message in a work of fiction. This is a fantasy. It's an imaginative story that may have unrealistic characters and events. We have story events and settings that really couldn't happen in real life in fantasy, and characters who behave in a very unrealistic way. At this point, let's look at the essential question on the bottom of 625. It says, how can media be a distraction? And I think in order to really answer that, we need to preview this topic, or preview this story. That's what I meant to say. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video. What I'd like you to do is two things. I'd like you to preview the story. Just take a little walk through the pictures and predict what you think it's going to be about. And then I'd like you to set a purpose for reading, because good readers set a purpose for reading based on their preview and their predictions, and then what they know about the genre, which is in this case fantasy. So go ahead, pause the video, do those things. I'm going to preview, make your prediction, and then set a purpose, and then come back to the video. So if I were setting a purpose for reading after I previewed and predicted what I thought the story would be about, I see that the story is about a hamster, and I bet the hamster is Humphrey from the title. I see him covering his ears and pulling out a plug on page 630, and I want to find out why Humphrey does these things. What is your purpose for reading? At this point, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and I want you to read. The story starts on page 626, and it is a nice long story, so there must be lots of fun things to read about. It ends on page 637. So pause the video here, read through the entire story, and then join me back here when you're done. All right, we're going to think through the text. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I encourage you to pause the video and discuss these questions with your learning adult at home. These are all based on what you're reading, and I'll try to show the pages that you can find the information on your screen. So why does AJ believe that Garth is no longer his friend? What does Humphrey discover about AJ's behavior in school from watching his family at home? How is AJ's home different from other homes that Humphrey has been to? Do you think that the Thomas family really loves watching TV? Or is watching TV just a habit that everyone is used to? Explain your answer. Why is Humphrey getting so frustrated? Analyze the text. Idioms. What does Miss Thomas mean when she says, "I've had it"? And how does the use of this idiom affect the story? Why does Humphrey feel it's necessary to pull the plug on the TV? How does the family react when the TV suddenly goes off? Analyze the text. Point of view. Who is telling this story? And how does that affect what you know about the events? What synonym does the author use in the 5th paragraph to help you figure out the meaning of bickering? And what does bickering mean? How does Humphrey's pulling the plug on the television affect the story's plot? How does the Thomas family respond to life without a TV? And what details does the author provide about what the Thomases do? What do you think the word reluctantly means on page 634? And how does the context of the story help you figure out the meaning? How does Humphrey play a part in ending the conflict between AJ and Garth? What do you think Mr. and Mrs. Thomas will do about the unplugged TV? Analyze the text. Theme. AJ learns a lesson when Garth comes to his house. What is this lesson? And how does this lesson relate to the theme of the story? What does the reaction of AJ's mother suggest about what she thinks of having the TV turned off? How do you think the Thomas family will be different after Humphrey leaves? Turn to page 638. You have just read a fantasy story about a hamster named Humphrey. The World According to Humphrey is a fantasy story. In it, a hamster helps a family learn an important lesson. The lesson the family learns over the course of the story is the story's theme. Paying careful attention to the text evidence, including the characters' thoughts and actions, can help you figure out a story's theme. The ways in which characters grow and change also reveal the theme. On page 637, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas decide not to plug in the TV. Why did they do this? And what did the Thomas family learn about television viewing in the story? Well, Mrs. Thomas suggests keeping the TV unplugged for a while, and Mr. Thomas agrees. The characters have completely changed their attitude towards the TV at this point. Even the kids are happily playing outside, and no one misses the TV even a little bit. I can tell that the theme has to do with enjoying the simple pleasures of life, like laughing, playing, and talking together without the distraction of the TV. Point of view is the standpoint from which a story is written. When a story is told from the first person point of view, the narrator is a character in the story. The narrator uses the pronoun I and tells about events and people the way he or she sees them. If an outside observer of the story events is the narrator, then the story is told from the third person point of view. The narrator would use words like he, she, and they to tell about the characters. Idioms. Authors often use idiom phrases that mean something different from the literal meanings of the words themselves. In a story, if a character were to say she was out of gas, what do you think she means? The literal meaning of the phrase is out of fuel, but the expression can also mean tired or lacking energy. Authors can use idioms to say things in more imaginative ways. They use idioms to make their writing lively and realistic. Like the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs. That means that it's raining really hard.